to show you how to take a graphic that you create in Illustrator and put it onto perspective planes in Photoshop. Here's this very simple graphic I created just for demo purposes. I'm going to take this, select this one because this is going on the first plane, and I'll go to copy or Command C or Control C depending on if you're using a PC or a Mac. And now what I'll do is go to Photoshop, and here's my building. I want to put it on this plane here, so I will do a Command V or go to the pull down menu for paste. Let's just bring it in as pixels here. Say OK, and there it is. I'm going to scale it by grabbing one of the corners and kind of move it over to where I'm looking at placing it. Now the scale really helps. Placing it doesn't really make any difference, but scaling helps just to give me an idea, or the placement helps to give me an idea of the scale that I need this to be. Now I'll hit return, and it is on its own layer in Photoshop. Remember, anytime you paste in Photoshop, it comes in on its own layer. So let's now select that while we're on that layer and cut it and put it back onto the clipboard. You may ask, why did we put it onto the clipboard from Illustrator, place it in Photoshop, and then put it back on the clipboard? Well, the difference there is that we were taking something that was a vector graphic, and by placing it in Photoshop, we made it into a raster, pixel-based graphic, and then we're putting it back on the clipboard so that we can use it now. So now we need to go and put it onto the perspective plane. Now you might think that that would be, you do that under 3D, but that's not the case. We want to do it under filter and vanishing point here. That's where we can put something in perspective plane there. Say OK. And here is my building. I'm going to go ahead and kind of zoom in on that area that I want to work with. And I'm going to go to the Create Plane tool. Now, this is really simple to use it. You just click on the four corners of the plane. But here's the caveat. Keep in mind that one of the corners, or maybe two of the corners, may be hidden from your view by bushes, trees, mailboxes, cars, things like that. So you might need to use other architectural elements like windows or door frames or bricks or something like that, just to make sure that your perspective is correct. Because as you see, we'll put this in here. This is the plane I want to use here. Clicking on these four corners, and there's my plane. Now, while I have that one selected, I can go back to the Create Plane tool and click on the center point of the side of the plane and drag that out. It looks like I didn't get this thing exactly right, but that's how I could, if this is a 90-degree plane, I could get that to work. I may need to adjust this plane that I've got, adjust these corners, and it may require me going in closer still to kind of make sure that I get those corners exactly where they need to be, right? I'm going to move these things around a little bit. And let's get this one up here. That looks better. And let's see if we can now extend this out and get it. Yeah, it's closer anyway. And I can still manipulate that a little bit more if I need to, you know, moving those points a little bit there. All right, but this is the plane I want to work with, this one right here, this plane. And I'm going to bring in that graphic. Now, to do that, I need to bring it from the clipboard, so I need to paste it. Problem is, if you go under Edit you'll notice that that command is grayed out. I have no idea why. Honestly, don't. But I do know that Command V, the keyboard command, or Control V for you PC users, still works. So I'm going to do a Command V, and there's the graphic. Now I will click on it and drag it into the space there. And you'll notice it takes on the perspective of that plane. If I needed to scale it some more, I can go to the transform tool, and by holding down the shift key, I can make it a little bit bigger. Look how it actually goes onto that other plane there, right? But I can scale it and get it just about perfect that way. Once I have that, I'll say OK, and there it is. And it's on its own layer there, right? So let's go get the other side of this. We'll go back to Illustrator. We'll select this. Again, copy, right? And then go back to Photoshop and repeat the process. Go to paste, pixels, we'll scale it, move it to where we think it's going to go, scale it a little bit more, hit return, and then we'll select it. And as long as we're on that layer, because it came in on its own layer, we can select it and cut it without affecting anything else. We'll go back to vanishing point. We'll paste it, Command V, and drag it onto that other plane, right? And scale it if we need to using the transform tool. Say OK, and there we go. Now we've got that graphic working on those planes. There's still a problem though, and that's the fact that it doesn't look real because it's not working with the shadow there. So we need to put a shadow on the graphic to match that of the building. So let's select the area of that would be in shadow, and I'm going to just go ahead and draw that area on this layer here. So there's the area on this layer, pardon me. And let's also merge these two layers because we're going to actually use an adjustment layer. And remember, adjustment layers only apply to the layers directly, or they apply to all the layers below them, unless we associate it directly with just the layer below it. So we want it to apply to both of these graphics, so we'll need to have them both on the same layer. Lots of ways to do that. We can just go and have that top layer selected and then say merge down. So it will merge down to the next layer. We could also select the two layers and say merge visible, not visible, I'm sorry, merge layers, those that are selected. And those are also options that you can find under the layer pull down. So we'll do merge those layers that we have selected together, and now they're on the same layer, right? So, and they have this selection here on that layer too. So let's create the adjustment layer. And this time we're going to use curves here. And notice that it created its own masks based on what we had selected. And now watch what happens. When we pull this down, we can get a darker area. But look what it's doing to the building as well, right? It also darkened that part of the building. So let's associate this adjustment layer with just this layer. To do that, we put our cursor between those two layers and then click. And you'll notice that we get this little bent arrow here. And that's telling us that that adjustment layer is only applying to the layer directly below it. Now we can see that area looks like it's gone into shadow there. Okay, that's how you can place things into perspective planes in Photoshop.